feel love, and I ain't got no
I got the fire flow. Shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical in the mitten where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow. You a tadpole. Feel the love, feel the rush, feel the buzz, let it brush ya. Bald eagle clutch on the mic. What's up? Whistle turn me up.
Welcome to somebody's favorite movie podcast. I'm coming to you from the Pod Shack outside beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. My name is Randy.
And I'm Tom.
There's Tom. See, normally my co-host from the Miserable Retail Slave podcast joins me, but he's a ticking time bomb of anxiety and busyness. So I've enlisted another Tom to help me tonight.
The better Tom, I think,
the
in some ways.
Better Tom. A more intelligent, a different sort of Tom for your lives.
At least one that can be relied upon to watch a movie in time.
This is true. This is very true. Tommy, if you tell him to do something, he's like, no. He's like a stubborn little boy, and he pouts and he folds his little arms. Ugh. But I feel like you need a more proper introduction, sir. This is the man from Jake and Tom Conquer the World.
Indeed, yes. In fact, we were just talking off air that Jake and I are planning on dusting off the microphones and trying some sort of comeback because we have been in an extended hiatus for the better part of this year, actually.
For the better part, and the world is a sad place because of it. I mean,
yes. Everybody needs a little bit of Jakin in their life.
Well, and don't shortchange yourself, sir. I mean, you were Twitter's favorite son once upon a time. Don't you dare forget it.
Oh, back in my younger days, yes, I was the human retweet machine for a while.
Tomko was the human retweet. He is also the man who kicks ass for the Lord. Because this time, we're talking about a movie with more mommy issues than a 47-year-old virgin. It's a 1992 splatstick horror zombie comedy directed and co-written by Peter Jackson. Yes, that Peter Jackson. We're talking about, well, which do you prefer? It was called Braindead worldwide, but known as Dead Alive here in the States. Because another movie was coming out around the same time, produced by Roger Corman, called Braindead. Which name do you prefer, sir? Braindead or Dead Alive?
Out of respect to the auteur, I prefer the name Braindead.
You prefer Braindead. How about that? I'm kind of a Dead Alive man, I think. I sort of like the sound of that a little bit better.
It's a little too close to Evil Dead. I don't know why.
It is close to Evil Dead, and I feel like there's a lot of similarities to at least Evil Dead 2 in this movie. Quite a bit,
there
actually.
Are.
However, during my massive amount of research in preparation, I mean, I sweated over so many tomes trying to find all of the great trivia and factual knowledge for you folks.
You went to IMDb, didn't you?
Well, listen, don't you dare reveal all my trade secrets, sir.
I was going to say, that's what I did.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. However, I flew to New Zealand and talked to Peter Jackson himself. That's how dedicated I am. It wasn't the actual Peter Jackson that directed The Lord of the Rings or anything. It was some drunk in some pub named Peter Jackson. And, well, he bought me a flask of mead, and that was all that happened, really.
Did you split a Vegemite sandwich?
Oh, gross. Have you ever had Vegemite?
No. Isn't it made out of the stuff that's left over from vats of beer?
I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It just sounds disgusting to me.
Yeah, Vegemite. Just saying it leaves a bad aftertaste in your mouth, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I saw an interview with the guy that did the special effects in this movie, Richard Taylor, who also went on to do the special effects in King Kong and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
I'm just blown away that the level of progression he's made between films.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, he was known primarily as a splatter director.
Right, yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, what did the special effects artist have to say about this film?
Well, he said in an interview with Quint from Ain't It Cool News in 2011 that after Peter Jackson realized that another Braindead was coming out, he, quote, could no longer call their movie Braindead and asked everyone to try out and come up with new names. And we mucked around for a couple of weeks with all sorts of different names, and we ultimately settled on the name Unstoppable Rot. We printed T-shirts. We made a sign for outside our effects room, which was Baby Selwyn vomiting the words Unstoppable Rot onto the floor. How about them rotten apples? Do you change your answer now? Would you like this movie better if it was called Unstoppable Rot?
No, but if I ever start a punk band, that's what I'm going to call it.
It's pretty perfect, right? Yeah. Oh, do you remember, since you're the guy that suggested that we watch this movie tonight?
Yes. In fact, I just finished rewatching it prior to coming over to my computer.
Hey, that's some great homework there. You're really fresh and prepared.
See, I'm the professional, Tom.
You are the professional, Tom. Do you remember the first time you actually watched this movie? Because the first time I actually watched it was like a day ago. So,
yes, I did. I saw it back, I want to say, in 2003, 2004-ish. It was highly recommended by a former Couch Party alumni by the name of Scott. He is a horror aficionado, to say the least. He recommended it to no end, and hell if he wasn't right. This is one of my favorite splatter movies of all time.
excellent.
Now, real quick, before we get into talking about the movie proper, I got to talk about the last time I saw this prior to reviewing it for this podcast.
Okay.
It was Halloween 2007.
Okay.
Same friend Scott invited me to go watch his friend's band play at the local Cinemaplex down the road from where I live, and it was just a bizarre evening. The band came out dressed as 1980s wrestlers.
Oh, that's awesome.
Including the lead singer, who was dressed as the Ultimate Warrior and made his entrance by sprinting into the theater, up the stairs, down the other side of the stairs, and then was shaking the mic stand.
That's amazing.
The set was not memorable, but after they got done playing, they dimmed the lights and rolled on Dead Alive. And so I get to say that, yes, I did get to see this in the theater.
Wow, that's amazing. They actually played it there.
Yeah, I know.
Because the local movie theater, me and the old...
The amazing thing is there were no age restrictions. So, I mean,
better.
I'm sitting next to this maybe 12-year-old kid watching a movie with a dude literally mowing through all kinds of gore with an upright lawnmower.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that's impressive to me because the local movie theater, which me and Tomko live very close by each other, they don't do cool shit like that.
They used to do it all the time back in the day.
We need to start an Alamo Draft House, sir. Let's get it going.
I think yes. Nick, if you're listening, get it done, sir.
Get it done. Make it come to Flint, Michigan, USA.
So what were your impressions on this film, sir? You said that this is the first time you've ever watched it?
This is the first time I've ever watched it. I've certainly heard of it, but it's one of those things where I put it on a list of movies to watch, and I just have not. My first impression was this movie is disgusting.
Yes. This isn't for everyone, folks.
It isn't for everyone. However, it's the type of horror movie that I like the best because it's old school practical effects. Absolutely no CGI. I think that horror movies in the 80s and early 90s were a lot better because of the practical effects, because everything is slimy and weird looking. And I think that the CGI that you saw in like the movie Cursed by Kevin Williamson, who wrote Screamed and stuff, and all the Scream movies and Dawson's Creek of all things. He did this movie called Cursed, and it's a werewolf movie starring Jesse Eisenberg after Scream came out. And it's all CGI and like CGI blood splatters. It's just not, it doesn't fit at all. And I mentioned werewolves, and there's a werewolf in the background, sir, so you need to watch yourself. I hope you have silver bullets or something.
Well, if I start to grow hair in unusual places, it's not because of puberty. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's because you're an old man, that's all.
Yes.
But I feel like that's the charm that the horror movies of the 80s and early 90s have, that the practical CGI, because you look at it and it looks so fucking weird, and you're wondering to yourself, how did they possibly begin to accomplish this? And I would say that studios these days would never greenlight a major budget movie with practical horror effects. And it's a shame. It's a fucking shame, because it's a lost art. There's going to be a whole generation of filmmakers that don't know how to do any of this. And I feel like the horror movies would be a lot better for it if they did learn how to do it.
Well, I mean, they're still out there. I was actually just watching a documentary about Tom Savini, and he has an entire school dedicated to teaching people the craft of physical effects for horror movies. So there's still a passion. There's just not as much of a demand.
For those that don't know, Tom Savini designed the masks for Slipknot, the most recent mask, and also, if you're a wrestling fan, he designed the mask for The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. So that's where you know him from.
I'll always know him from, say, Dawn of the Dead or any of those Romero films.
Over The Fiend, Bray Wyatt? How dare you, sir?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I guess my point is that sometimes, like, for example, I want my Godzilla movie to look fuzzy. I don't need it in HD and beautiful. I don't need to see all the strings. So I appreciate the kind of grime that old school practical effects give to a horror movie.
Well, I mean, it's not just aesthetics, but it really does help. Damn. Sorry, listeners. It helps the actors. You know, it gives them something to play off of, as opposed to just imagining what some animator is going to put in there in post-production.
Oh, absolutely. You would think that they see this weird shit happening in real life, and it's got to have some sort of visceral reaction, right? I mean, you can't just watch somebody's face get ripped off and not have a reaction to it, even though it's fake. Even though you know it's fake, it's right there, you know?
Well, not only that, but I mean, how many times did you see something coming at the main actor and hitting him in the face?
Right.
You know, you're going to get a much better reaction if you're actually throwing something at him, as opposed to having him imagine that impact.
Yeah. But I guess that's my first takeaway. The gore effects in this movie are pretty amazing. And for the life of me, I can't figure out how some of them were done. And kudos to them, because that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was reading that, I mean, the budget wasn't terribly high. I think it was something like $3 million.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
They came in under budget.
Oh, it came in under budget. Wow.
Yeah. And so Peter Jackson realized that he had this extra money. So he went out to a park and filmed the baby scene. And it turned out to be his favorite scene in the entire film.
Yeah. By the way, that baby is the most annoying thing ever.
Aren't all babies?
Yeah, but this one is like kind of a living, disgusting Looney Tunes character.
And you know what? That is the perfect description for this movie. It's a mean-spirited Looney Tunes cartoon, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the writers of the movie. So Peter Jackson wrote it along with his longtime partner, Fran Walsh, and who was the other guy? Steven Sinclair. Steven Sinclair came up with the story, and him, Peter Jackson, and Fran Walsh co-wrote it, the screenplay. And it's almost like they all sat around drinking and tried to think about the most fucked up things they could possibly imagine in a zombie movie that they hadn't seen yet. So you get a zombie sex scene, which leads to the birth of a disgusting zombie baby. You have living intestines because every part of the zombie is alive for some reason.
Not only that, but you have the anus
Yes.
attacking the protagonist.
You have a living, farting anus attack the lead actor. I mean, how many movies can you say that happens to the protagonist?
And if that doesn't make you want to go out and watch this movie, I don't know what to tell you, folks.
You ever want to see some anal in a zombie movie? Here it is. Just that should have been on the poster.
Courtesy of an Academy Award winning director, folks.
Yes. Here's some anal. That's all you had to put on the poster, you know? The baby, by the way, according to Richard Taylor, was all Peter Jackson's doing. He wanted an asshole zombie baby, said Richard Taylor. God, you hated that little prick.
I know you found the baby annoying, but I loved Zombaby.
Yeah, it is a Zombaby. And I had seen, I don't know if you saw it or not, there what was it called on Sci-Fi? There was a show that was on called Z Nation, maybe?
Yes, I've heard of it, but I've not actually watched it.
And in like the very first or second episode, there is a zombie baby. And I didn't know it at the time because I had never seen this, but I was like, wow, that's inventive. I'd never seen that before. And I've got to think that that's kind of a homage to this movie.
Yeah, from what I understand, Z Nation is kind of in the same vein in that they don't take themselves overly serious the way, say, Walking Dead does. They just have fun with the genre, and that's what this movie is. It's just stupid fun. There's not much of a plot to it, but you don't need a plot in a movie like this.
No, and actually, I think the entire reason I started watching Z Nation is because I heard there was a tornado of zombies in it, and I'm like, I have to see that. I never got that far, but
well, I'm sure it's on Netflix still.
I hope so. Also, did you catch on Sci-Fi a few weekends ago, starring Ian Ziering, star of Sharknado 1 through 5, Zombie Tidal Wave?
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, good Lord, indeed.
Just when you think that the producers and the executives at Sci-Fi can't sink any lower, they defy all expectations.
Right, yeah. So as far as the baby goes, they actually made a puppet baby, of course. They also designed a suit for a 2-year-old child to fit into. That wasn't a little person in a suit. That was a child. It was
coolest parents ever.
Coolest parents ever, right? So Richard Taylor said, the day of the shoot, we put her on set. She's all excited. We put the head on, the zombie baby head. We carry her to the point where she's going to start running. And for the first time ever since she's been in the suit, the actor playing Uncle Les stands behind her and lifts this meat cleaver and begins chasing her. This little 2-year-old girl looks over her shoulder, sees this crazed, manic adult male with a meat cleaver, and that was it. She freaked, and understandably so. The rest of the day was very painful. I've wondered from time to time, what on earth ever happened to that little girl? I wonder where she is now.
And that, folks, is how strippers are made.
Her name is Mystery now. You can see her every Wednesday afternoon. You're welcome.
Oh, man. What else is there to say about this movie? I mean, it's definitely in the vein of a Raimi film with the weird camera angles and camera movements, the over-the-top gore. But, I mean, it just somehow manages to outdo Sam Raimi.
Well, I mean, you replace a chainsaw with a push mower deck, and there you go.
No, this movie is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm kind of making light of it. I'm kind of, making fun of it almost, but it really is a hell of a movie, especially when you think about some of the statistics. Again, I went to IMDb, and they're saying that apparently this movie used the most fake blood of any film ever. And I can believe that.
I believe it too, yeah.
Something like 300 liters of fake blood were used just in the final scene. The lawnmower was pumping 5 gallons per second.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I
I'm also reading that when it came out for rental in Sweden, it came with a supplemental vomit bag.
That's the best marketing tool ever. More movies need to do
Yes.
that. I did read a thing where the British film magazine Total Film actually named it the most violent movie of all time, meaning it beat Old Boy, Natural Born Killers, Cannibal Holocaust, the Hostel movies. It was number one as most violent, which
I haven't seen Old Boy. It's one of those ones that I keep meaning to watch, kind of like how you viewed this, but it's certainly more violent than all those other movies that you listed off.
I did see Old Boy and I wasn't impressed with it. I think it was overhyped in my mind. I don't know.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. So let's take a deep dive into this movie real quick. It's Braindead or Dead or Alive, whichever you prefer, or Unstoppable Rot if you're fancy. Now that you have that factoid in your back pocket. So obviously it's a zombie movie. Biting in zombie movies. What is it with the biting thing? Like saliva is. I read this thing about a study that was done on kissing, and it turns out that every time you kiss a person, it alters the microbiomes in your gut, so you are literally changed forever. Did you know that about kissing, Tomko?
I just hope my wife doesn't hear this because that's probably going to be something else that she holds over me.
Right? Like, this is your fault. I'm the way. Like, I was bitten by a rabid kindergartner when I was 5 years old, and maybe that's why I feel like a shuffling, unaccomplished zombie sometimes. Maybe he was just a lazy asshole, and he bit me, and that transferred to me, and now I'm just a procrastinating turd. And it's
Now,
all
would
his
that
fault.
5-year-old have been patient zero? Do you have to kind of go back and take him out in order to be cured?
I kind of took him out. He bit me. This was in preschool, and I still remember it. The memory is very vivid. He bit me right on the forearm, and I took a wooden giraffe, and I hit him with it. I threw it right at his face.
Serves him right.
Yeah, I don't know what happened after that, you know. He probably never recovered, which is good, because you don't need to bite any more people. Keep your saliva to yourself, you fool.
But no, I mean, to answer your question about, the biting in zombie movies, I mean, isn't that one of our primal fears is, having the tables turned on us where we're not the prime predator and instead we're the ones that are being consumed?
Yeah, I think that is the fear of being eaten is like naturally ingrained in all living things, I would think. Like,
Yeah.
very much fight or flight.
I mean, part of the reason why I want to be cremated is just out of spite because I'll be goddamned if the earth consumes me.
Yeah. You'll not make a meal out of me, earthworms. Tomko's creed.
Hey, we got to have our principles, and that's the one I'm standing on.
Well, that's not a bad one to have. So the movie starts out on Skull Island, and if that name sounds familiar, yes, that's the Skull Island that King Kong is from. And in fact, in Jackson's 2005 version of King Kong, in one scene you can see the cargo in a ship containing a box reading Sumatran Rat Monkey, beware the bite.
Oh my God, I completely forgot about that, but that is so awesome.
It's very awesome. Yes, the people in this movie are turned into zombies from the bite of a rat monkey, which, why is this thing just randomly running around? You would think that entire island would be full of zombies.
Well, I mean, the inhabitants of that island seem to have a healthy respect and fear of that. I don't think that when the natives were accosting not the anthropologist, but the
Zookeepers?
guy who was getting the monkey for the zoo,
Yeah.
I don't think they were doing it for malicious reasons. I think they were trying to protect outsiders.
Yeah, that seemed to be what was happening. Because they wanted to save the man after he was bitten. They tried to chop off his arm, and he was scratched on his other arm and also on his head. So, yeah, his head had to go too. That's unfortunate. And
Yes, and that was a hell of a way to start the film. I mean, if it definitely lets you know what you're in for because it shows in unblinking graphic detail this man being dismembered in an attempt to save his life.
yeah. And now that I've mentioned King Kong, Skull Island, and the Rat Monkey, now all I can think of is like a giant festering zombie King Kong rampaging and falling apart all over Skull Island. That's the
Oh
King.
no, that has to take place in New York City with Jack Black in the background.
Just falling apart. That is actually the King Kong movie Peter Jackson should have made. Just a zombie King Kong just festering and spewing blood everywhere, and it would have been a lot better.
Certainly better than that 4-hour slogfest that we got.
Yeah, I mean, it was very touching or whatever. In case you're wondering where Peter Jackson might have gotten the Sumatran rat monkey idea from, there's actually in a Sherlock Holmes adventure called The Adventure of the Sussex Vampire, Holmes mentions to Watson the case of the giant rat of Sumatra, identifying it as a story for which the world is not yet prepared. So how about that?
Well, they did give us the story in this movie.
It was born after giant rats come off slave ships and raped all the tree monkeys, according to the zookeeper anyways.
Yeah, and can we talk about the quality of that zoo? I mean, I've seen backyard wrestling with better regulations than that zoo.
Well, and yeah, so the rat monkey rips the arm off the other monkey and is like chewing on it and stuff. Poor monkey.
Well, not only that, but you have open cages where people can just walk up and stick their hands into, whatever is in there. Lions, koala bears, and rat monkeys.
And rat monkeys, yeah. So, you've got the bite is a popular saying in this movie. That's what the natives say to the man that's immediately gets bitten by that rat monkey.
That's a slogan that should be on a T-shirt.
It should
You've
be.
Got the bite.
You've got the bite. So the film moves to follow a man named Lionel, who I mentioned at the very beginning, mommy issues. He lives with his mom in a Victorian mansion, and she's not fond of his blossoming romance with a Spanish shopkeeper's daughter named Paquita.
Now, was she Spanish? Because her grandparents seemed to be Eastern European.
They did. They were gypsies of some sort, or fortune tellers or something. I thought she was Spanish because she was speaking Spanish. So,
this movie does have problems with internal logic at times.
For example, there's a Nazi veterinarian for no apparent reason.
Well, you got to make a living. The war was done. What else is a Nazi supposed to do?
I guess gas the dogs and cats that need euthanized. I mean, I suppose it's a perfect job for them.
And sell mass quantities of tranquilizers to random people coming in off the street.
Exactly. So while Lionel and Paquita are on a date after a prophecy by Paquita's mother, that's the stars and the moon, whatever, signs. She sees a sign that maybe the dorky Lionel might be her guy, her love, the love of her life. So they go on a date. Mommy's not happy about that. They go to the zoo. They see the rat monkey. The rat monkey, of course, bites mom.
Who is tracking her own son while on a date.
Yes.
Kind of messed up.
Little bit messed up. Little bit. There's mommy issues galore. I'm not sure who had the mommy issues, but my God. My God. So mom stomps on the monkey's head in a very disgusting display. I mean, yeah. And she begins to throw a, pardon the pun, monkey wrench into the relationship there because mom immediately is ushered away by mama's boy Lionel, leaving Paquita all by herself. And it's not soon after that mom starts to zombify.
Yeah, and I was kind of shocked at how quickly everything happened and the degree that they took it in this movie. I mean, immediately. I mean, they didn't just go for a festering wound. They had boils on the face. They had the makeup scene where she's trying to apply foundation, and all of a sudden her entire epidermis just comes off of her cheek.
Yeah, it's not very subtle, this transformation.
No.
Not at all. And I don't know what sort of metaphor this is, but the mom eats Paquita's dog, leading to the line, "Your mother ate my dog." Mommy
A
issues.
lot of great line delivery in this movie.
Exactly. Eventually she dies, and the nurse on hand taking care of her tries to break the news to Lionel that, "Oh, your mom's dead." He doesn't take it well. He's weeping, as one does. And then Mom immediately murders the nurse by sticking her fingers in her face and ripping her head off. Or backwards, actually.
Not quite off. It's still kind of hanging on by a flap.
She's got a hinged head at this point from now on.
Yeah, and they play that effect up. They get everything out of it that they possibly can.
Quite a bit. He locks Mom up in the basement along with the nurse. Mom gets out, gets hit by a train, while Lionel is trying to reconcile with Paquita, and she gets hit by a train, and everybody thinks that she's dead. She's not dead, leading to an amazing funeral scene with even more mommy issues. The head priest, who kicks ass for the Lord, says that the theme of today's service is the sanctity of motherhood, and he continues on saying that Lionel was blessed by an abundance of mother love due to the absence of his father in his life.
I'm pretty sure I've seen videos of that online.
Yeah. I mean, and wasn't there a scene where he frolics around with her dead body in some
several.
Yeah, slapstick sort of way, and yeah.
Now you're forgetting one of the major characters in this movie, and that's Lionel's uncle.
Uncle Les, the scheming, conniving, gross uncle who flirts with Paquita, and I don't know, seemingly tries to rape her later in the movie.
I just love the wardrobe for this character. He's got the obnoxious 50s pompadour hairstyle that turns out to be a bad toupee, the huge mutton chops, the cheesy 50s suit. I mean, it's just a really well-made character for a movie like this.
Yeah. After the funeral scene, that's when the gore really kicks in, because that's when all the hardcore action starts to happen. What's your favorite scenes after that point?
After that point, I'd say it's a three-way split between the fight in the graveyard, the baby's day out, and then the end of the party scene.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the priest turns out, I wish the priest was more of a character in the movie, because it turns out the priest has some amazing karate skills.
Yes, and probably again the best line in the entire movie is, "I kick ass for the Lord."
I wish he would have threw across like a throwing star or something. That would have been great. But
Lost opportunities.
I know, but I was very pleased with that scene, all in all.
Well, I mean, he's kind of presented as this humble but stern old man during the funeral scene, and then out of nowhere, he's got moves to rival Bruce Lee, where he's ripping arms off, kicking heads off. He does a sweep of the leg, and the zombie's legs come out from, literally come off from underneath him. It's just so over the top and campy. And the effect of the gore in this scene, in the movie in general, isn't revulsion. It's, you can't help but look at it and just crack up laughing.
Yeah. Okay, what are your favorite gore effects in the movie? Because one of mine is after the party scene where zombies start running wild and start killing everybody. There's a scene where the guy is stuck halfway in a room and outside, and the window falls on him, and so the people inside are trying to pull him out from the outside because the zombies are coming, and leaving the lower part of his flesh behind, and he's just kicking and screaming on the ground with little skeleton legs. And I'm like, how did they do that effect?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moments where I'm kind of scratching my head trying to figure out how they A, pulled it off to make it look so convincing, and B, managed to do it on such a minuscule budget.
Yeah.
I'd say my favorite effect was, again, toward the end during the party scene where Paquita and Rita, her friend, are trapped in a kitchen, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And out of nowhere, the baby comes up behind Rita. You just see a close up of her face, and
Oh yeah,
she
that's
she
amazing.
freezes in this stunned expression, and you see the baby's fingers burst out of her cheeks and then spread and splitting her head open. I thought that was really well done because most of the times in movies like this, you can tell, okay, that's obviously a dummy's head. It doesn't look anything like the actor. This looked like the actor playing Rita. I was really, really impressed with that.
Yeah, and if you look up if you Google Dead Alive, that will be the somewhat a representation of the image you see. If you Google Dead Alive, that's the poster you see of like a face peering out of this woman's mouth.
Yeah. Just really, really well done.
But I thought this is what I thought. I didn't think that was the original baby. I thought the original baby bit her and it impregnated her head and a new baby was coming out of her head.
Oh God.
That's what I thought, because I thought the baby was still running around.
I could see where that. I mean, again, with the logic of this movie, why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought. I'm like, oh my God. Because the baby did bite her at one point, and she was holding her neck. And yeah, I thought the baby impregnated her by biting her in her head. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. Maybe that's a movie I need to make. Maybe I have my own mommy issues. Who knows?
Get it done, sir.
Get it done. So
yeah, I will definitely be the boom operator on that movie.
So I guess we really have to talk about the climax of the movie. So spoilers if you don't want to hear how it ends. But
yeah, spoilers on a 27-year-old movie.
Exactly. But even if we tell you how it ends, you're still going to want to see it because you're like, what the fuck? So at a certain point, what led to all the zombies popping up during this party, Lionel thought he was finally putting all the zombies down because for the longest time he was taking care of the priest and the gangster and his mom and the nurse, and they were having zombie dinner parties where he was feeding them because he couldn't bear to part with his mom and he didn't know what to do with the others.
Yes, and that I think was probably the grossest scene where the nurse is trying to eat scrambled eggs or whatever it is, and it just comes out of the gaping wound where her neck and head used to be connected.
Right. Yes.
And so he has to basically prop her head back like a human Pez machine and feed it directly into her esophagus.
Exactly. And the scene, the priest zombie is very horny, and so is apparently the zombie nurse, and that's what eventually leads to the zombie sex scene, which is a phrase that needs to be said more often.
If you watch this movie, you will see two zombies rutting.
This is true. So at a certain point, Paquita finds out about the zombies in his basement, which is, I mean, kind of a metaphor for skeletons in his closet. He's a mommy boy, right? And
either way, I mean, she has the patience of a saint because that's got to be a strain on a new relationship,
right? I mean, but she was given the prophecy, and for whatever reason, she did go out on another date, and all he wanted to do was talk about soccer, like a douche. So he decides to take her advice because she finds out about the zombies, and he thinks he's killing them with poison. I don't know why he thinks this is going to work, considering nothing else has worked to kill these things. But he thinks he's injecting them with poison. It turns out it was mislabeled. It's actually like some sort of animal stimulant or something. So eventually the zombies, instead of dying, wake up as super methed out zombie people. He goes through the trouble of burying them, and they pop out of their graves, and they're out of control.
Yes, it reminded me of what I'd imagine the gathering of the Juggalos must be like.
Just a lot of Fago and pale skin and dead-looking people. Yep, that's exactly right. Instead of all the blood spurts, you just have Fago red pops spraying everywhere. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Eventually, Mommy rises from the grave as like the final boss for all you NES players. And for whatever reason, she's a lot bigger than the other zombies. She's giant and naked and has big old zombie boobs and says, "Come to mommy."
Yeah, that's where the movie kind of made me take pause because again, it doesn't seem to be following its own rules at this point. Not only is she a giant and towering over her own house, again, another metaphor,
Yeah.
but she's intelligent, at least intelligent enough to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing I noticed. She doesn't resemble a person at all. She kind of looks like a giant bird, which I took to mean some sort of leave the nest type of deal, you know? And he screams, "You don't scare
Well, I
me."
was almost thinking like a praying mantis.
Oh, that's good too. I could see that, yeah.
Mhm.
So they eventually make their way to the rooftop. Paquita's there, Lionel's there, zombie Big Mom there, completely naked. And she says, "No one will ever love you like your mother." And she tries to suck him back into her womb and is very successful at this. And you're
Yes.
like, what is happening right now? What is going on? And she says, "Such a good boy," as Paquita cries for her lost love, who she's lost to his mother, the only girl in his life that seems to matter. Ugh. Like, who has the mommy issues here? I need to know. Because it's very, I mean, I sort of picked up on it, but then the climax of this movie, it just really beats it home.
Well, I kind of took it to almost be like a metaphor for not only getting over his mommy issues, but like a rebirth. Because the way he escaped was he sliced his way out almost like a cesarean.
Yeah, it was a kind of like a reverse C-section.
Yeah.
And he's essentially reborn, covered in all the juices and placenta stuff. And yeah, he's like a newborn baby boy.
No, I'm thinking about it. This movie is a lot more intelligent than I originally gave it credit for.
I mean, it is dumb too. There's a lot of dumb
Yeah,
stuff.
it's incredibly stupid.
Yeah, but there is.
I mean, if you want to come home from a night at the bar and just watch something to giggle at, this is the movie for you.
Exactly, but there are deeper stuff. There is deeper stuff there if you want to look hard enough. If you squint just so, you'll see it. Yeah, and Mom is like, he bursts from her womb and she kind of just falls back and I don't know. The house burns down and that's pretty much it. But yeah, and then he's a newborn heroic man and they zip line from the roof with his belt and they live happily ever after, I guess.
Now, one thing we didn't talk about was the medallion.
Yeah.
Like the cross with the almost like sigh that is over the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's carrying it around the entire movie. That's what he uses to slice his way out of his mother's womb. And after everything's said and done, he just tosses it into the fire. What do you think that's supposed to mean?
Well, I was trying to think. You saw it just before recording. What's where did that even come from? Wasn't it a gift from his mom?
I think it was.
Okay. So I guess that's him like rejecting his mother, because the other thing that happens throughout the movie, he's seeing visions of this blonde-haired woman drowning and this man drowning, and you're not quite sure. Well, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I thought maybe he almost drowned and somebody was trying to save him or whatever. It turns out his mom was a murderer and murdered his father and murdered the lady he was having an affair with. And
you do.
Like you do. I mean, that's the rational thing to do. And somehow he blacked that out until the very end confrontation on the rooftop. He remembered everything. He watched the murders happen. So I think he was rejecting everything that his mother was or taught him, I guess, by throwing that into the fire. Like, I no longer need mom anymore.
Yeah, it makes as much sense as anything in this movie.
Yeah, I know. We should have wrote an essay about this, I guess.
I'm sure that someone out there has written a college thesis on this movie.
Oedipal complex and dead alive. Okay.
Now, one thing that we didn't really talk about is this movie is actually a period piece. It's set in 1957, and I got to give them credit. They got the details down, pretty well.
Is it really? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, because during the graveyard scene, they showed the mother's tombstone, and the dates of her life were 1897 to 1957. And you look at the style of clothing, you look at the merchandise on Paquita's store shelves, the vehicles. It's all period appropriate.
Oh, you know what? I'm such an idiot. I'm like, well, it takes place in New Zealand, so everything's different. I didn't even realize. I didn't even pay attention. That's amazing. I wonder what the significance of 1957 is, though.
If I had to guess, I'd say that, the 50s in particular were one of the golden eras of Hollywood for the horror movies.
Yeah.
You had The Creature from the Black Lagoon, I Was a Teenage Werewolf, all of those cheesy B-movie grindhouse type of movies came from that era. At least that's where they kind of started. And I think it has to be like an homage to that era.
Yeah, it might be. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
well, of course,
for a dumb zombie movie, this is a pretty smart flick.
Yeah, it is. If you overlook all the gore and the zombie sex and the
well, that's how you get the people into the theater, and
right.
then you lay the subtext on them.
To me, it's a perfect mesh between comedy and horror. There's plenty of funny movies in it. There's also disgusting, horrible moments in it, and it can be campy. Like the effects of the rat monkey are just ridiculous, and the baby, and then it can be grotesque and realistic too.
Yeah, my wife was in the living room while I was watching this, and I have a feeling that she's not too pleased with me right now.
And the movie that sprang to mind when I was watching this, not only Evil Dead 2, was Shaun of the Dead. And so I looked it up, and in Simon Pegg's book, Nerd Do Well, he says, Peter Jackson's movie Braindead, Dead Alive as it was known in the States, was a favorite of both mine and Edgar Wright, who directed Shaun of the Dead, and was required viewing during our writing of Shaun of the Dead, since it was essentially rom-zom-com, romantic zombie comedy, despite claims in other corners that ours was the first. And that was the big selling point of Shaun of the Dead. I remember when it came out, I have a big Shaun of the Dead poster in my room, and it says romantic comedy with zombies, and that's what this is, really.
Yeah, just change the accents around.
Just change them around, and there you go.
Now, do you recommend this movie to your listeners, sir?
Yeah, let's judge it, Tomko. Would you call it a damn fine custard or what? No pudding. Let's base it on that.
It is a damn fine custard.
I would call
rich and creamy.
Yes, I would call it a damn fine custard as well. The more I sat with this movie, the more I liked it. So I would call it a damn fine custard as well. If you're into horror and gore and splatter and good-natured humor, I don't know how much good nature there is, but there's plenty of humor. This one's for you, I think.
Oh yeah, it's campy and unapologetically so. It's definitely in a very, very small circle of films. Like, again, we keep mentioning the Raimi movies. We keep mentioning Edgar Wright. They are definitely, close cousins to each other.
Exactly. Is there anything else you want to say about Dead Alive before we sign off?
Oh God, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say about it other than definitely go watch it. I don't think it's available on iTunes or any other digital platform right now, so you're gonna have to track down a physical copy of it.
See, ain't that a bitch? This is why you need to hoard your physical copies, people. Because the promise of streaming that I had in my head when I was a teen, I was like, wouldn't it be great if I had access to all the movies ever? And now we have that promise, but that's not the case. You can't find every movie ever. Yeah. So, hold on to your physical copies because they come in handy sometime, you know?
They certainly did tonight, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. This was fun, Tomco.
I'm glad that you invited me along. I hope to do it again sometime soon.
Oh, we're going to do it next time because Halloween month on Someone's Favorite Movie Podcast is going to continue. And I thought instead of one of us picking the movie, well, I should say that the email address is someone's favorite movie podcast at gmail.com. If you have a suggestion for a movie for us to cover, like what's your favorite movie that nobody appreciates? Shoot us a line. Tell us what it is, why it's your favorite movie, and we'll cover it. But since it wouldn't be fair if you picked another movie or I picked another movie, we're going to leave it to the fates. So I want you to pick a number between 1 and 10, sir, and that will determine what horror movie we cover next.
7.
7. We are going to cover Trick or Treat.
You know, I've never seen that movie. I have always heard great things about it.
Trick or Treat is a mid-'80s horror heavy metal movie with Ozzy Osbourne and I think Alice Cooper or something. No, Gene Simmons.
Oh, that's not the Trick or Treat I was thinking of. I thought it was the one that came out maybe about 10, 15 years ago. But Alice Cooper and Ozzy Osbourne in a Halloween horror movie definitely has my interest.
Well, don't get excited. I misspoke. It's Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, not quite as great. But still, let's see, right?
Yeah. I'll give it a spin.
Awesome. So I'm Randy. That's Tomco. We'll see you next time.
See ya.